Does your risk tolerance match your portfolio? All right, let's talk about your risk tolerance in your retirement portfolios. And before I do that, I want to just preface this real quick: is we're not giving financial advice. I'm not giving any financial advice about what you should be investing in. That's not what this purpose of this video is about. But I just want to bring awareness to how you are investing, and because when things change in life, we should be reassessing how you have been investing. And especially like a year we've had beginning of 2022, with the markets haven't been so favorable, I think people are getting a little concerned and upset, and maybe you even have to postpone retirement, or if you are retired, some are looking to get a part-time job because you've taken too many hits, too many losses in your portfolio. So let's just talk about the risk tolerance. So we've seen consistently through the years, as I do a retirement planning firm here, people come in here and they just don't look at it. And we see a lot of people are taking the same risk that they did 15, 20 years ago when they're younger, and you can afford that risk. But remember, as you get older, we should be de-risking our portfolio. The closer we get to or in retirement, most people, not everybody, but most people cannot afford to have that same level of risk you had in your 20s, 30s, 40s, right? So you need to be reassessing it. How often should you be looking at your, changing your risk or looking at your risk? And I think at a minimum is maybe every year you should be reassessing what you're investing in. Does that portfolio match up with what you should be investing in? Or in volatile times like now, at least every 6 months, you should be looking at that. I think there's been, we see the stock market's down, but we also see the bond market is down. And there's been a misconception that at least you can't lose in the bond market, but as we see, as interest rates keep climbing, the bonds have not done favorable, this year as well. So unfortunately, people have been losing in both of those sectors. When else should you look at it? But whenever there's a big change of life event, whether you get married, you get divorced, you lose a spouse, you retire, or maybe you lose a job, any kind of a major event like that, you should be also reassessing your investments to see, is that tolerance that you're investing in correct? And I know it's really hard to figure out how you're investing, and that's another big issue for clients. You get those prospectuses that you get on your investments, and you can read up on them, but you might have 15, 25, 50 investments between all your different accounts. So it's hard to really figure out, which ones you should be investing in. So that's what other people are really confused on that. It just takes a lot of time and energy. And if you're working, you don't have that time. I'm going to have a link in our underneath here, underneath the video, you can click. And we actually use a company. It's a third-party service. We have no affiliation with them besides we pay a fee to use it. But we're offering this for free for you. If you want to know what your tolerance is for risk, you can take a little risk assessment right through this link, through this website called Riskalyze. And it's no cost to you. You don't share any private information. You're just taking a quiz, an assessment to find out what is your tolerance for risk. And it'll give you a score from 1 to 100. Like a speed limit sign. Obviously, 1 is walking speed, hardly any risk at all, and 100 is you're breaking the speed limit, right? And you could lose your license. It's that aggressive. So doesn't mean any of those are wrong or right. It's just what is your score, and you want to find out that find that your investments that you're in are matching that score or very close to it, because when people come in, I ask them, what is your tolerance for risk? I said, what if we have another 2008 again, or the whole real estate bubble again? Are you comfortable with those kind of losses? And most people say, no, I don't want to lose anything. I go, well, that's not realistic, because if you're in the market, you have to be subject to, obviously gains or losses. So you have to understand that. The other part of that is too, once you know what your risk score is, there's also a way that you can find out what your investments score is. So you can actually, if you want, you can have one of our team members here input that information if you want, and we can input at no cost to you to show you how your investments are scored, and that how does that relate to what your score is. And that gives you a good idea about, hey, if there's good years in the market, this is the potential upside of your portfolios. If we have a tough year in the market, like in 2008, this is the potential downside. And we can just, share those. So you can see in relation at no cost if you want to do that. The key to the point is the older we get, the less risk we typically should be at. And especially in volatile times like that, like we are today, or like we were a couple of years ago, we had that quick drop in the market during the coronavirus, the health care crisis we had at that time. That really wasn't economic driven, it was just healthcare driven. We call that a black swan event. What we're part of today is not that. It's definitely economic driven. We don't know the prognosis. I'm not here to diagnose or prognose what the future will be in the market. The key is when you have a plan in place and you have whoever advisor you're working with, make sure that your investments are lining up with your tolerance. So take that assessment. It's at no cost to you. Reach out to us and we can have a team member input your holdings to see how they compare. And just be careful with your risk. Don't take on too much risk when you're too close to retirement, because the bigger hit you could take right at the beginning of retirement or the first few years of retirement could impact the life of your money.